the goal was to transform Switzerland into a leading digital nation. As you say, according to some metrics, we're number one. According to some rankings, we're a bit lower. So the Digital Competitiveness Index released by IMD, we're number 5. So there's still work to do for us. And Digital Switzerland, really, we work across 3 areas. So one is what we would classically know as B2C, so talking with the public to sensitize them about digital topics, and indeed, from my perspective, in startup scale-up enablement, to showcase the innovation that comes out of universities or other startups that are founded, and show how that can really contribute to an increase in living standards of innovation, both in Switzerland and abroad. Then, of course, after B2B, after B2C is B2B. So working with corporates, Switzerland, we're lucky we have many corporates that are headquartered here, and indeed many of them are represented in the membership of Digital Switzerland. There, really, our goal is to bring together initiatives and focus on impact in certain areas, and we prioritize 3 areas that I briefly mentioned now and can talk about later. So digital health, sustainability, and infrastructure and cybersecurity. And there, from the startup side, we're really looking for what is the innovation that can be brought as proof of concepts to corporates, and then how can it be scaled beyond proof of concept to make more impact. And then the third, really looking at the backbone of the ecosystem, is B2G, so looking at the government engagement side. So that's very forward thinking, looking at the regulatory environment that startups are operating in, not just startups, SMEs and the corporates themselves as well, on leading topics like artificial intelligence and emerging topics like the metaverse as well. So those are 3 areas that we work in. And indeed, as I said, I'm from the startup and scale up enablement side. So looking to go beyond the spin-off to the startup and then to scale up. And then you always wonder what happens beyond the scale up. Is it grow an IPO, or is it a strategic exit, or does it become an SME? That's a great ecosystem that we have here, where everything is thriving.
Thank you, Phil. Ardian, you've seen both sides of the coin. You've been an entrepreneur for many years, investing, developing new concepts, and growing your companies, but also now. And here today, you are a representative of business angels and a VC funding network. We would like to ask you the same question. What do you think Keiretsu Forum brings to the Western Balkan ecosystem? Or I should say, yes, Southeastern Europe.
Yes, so basically, I've been in business myself for over 20 years now, and I see so many opportunities, not only in Kosovo and Albania, but the entire region. But as our countries are small, populations are small, GDPs are small, in order to compete globally, we have to be innovative and look at global challenges, provide services and products that can scale globally. And I believe that there is talent in every part of the world, and in our part of the world as well. And we've seen startups that have started and grown globally from our part of the world. And this is basically, with this in mind, I took the initiative to start a chapter of Keiretsu Forum, which is a global investors network with over 60 chapters globally, with over 3,000 members as investors. And for so many years, our network has been #1 in terms of investments in the United States, except for 2021, we were #2. And so seeing this potential, and also the fact that in our part of the world, there is a lack of organized clubs or platforms of investors in early stage. I saw it as an opportunity, and basically I have allocated a lot of time and resources to work with this only. And as every beginning, it takes time, but I'm very happy with the pace of development that we're having, expanding our network. We already started making investments as well. So I see a very, very bright future for us. And the VCs in the area are very happy to find a partner like us.
Yes, indeed. And you mentioned a number of things, which we'll come back to later, such as small size, fragmentation, but also the number of VCs, because a lot of things that we hear seems that we seem to have too many VCs. And then when we speak to startups, we are in contact every day, they seem to have no funding instruments available. So there is this constant back and forth between, and we as an incubator based in Albania, we find ourselves in between. But I'll come back to Eli. Eli, you're a VC firm. You need deal flow. You have money to invest. Tell us a little bit. What has been this? You've been here for a while in the region. You've seen a lot of startups, a lot of pitch decks, as you said. But tell us, what has been the experience of South Central Ventures so far, and maybe give us one or two use cases of great investments that you have, or good investments, and maybe one or two that haven't worked out yet, if you can.
I won't use names on either, neither the good ones or the less successful ones, but still, yes, we've been in the region since 2015 with our first fund, and if we already deployed all the funds from that fund, we are currently investing out of the second fund. So I think that a lot of things have changed since 2015 and nowadays. Predominantly, I mean, the ecosystem in every country has matured quite a bit in terms of the mindset of the startup and the founders, in terms of the stakeholders that are currently present, and the number of support organization institutions, and it definitely in terms of transparency and collaboration that has been going on in the region, because we are also trying to connect the region and present it as one, and also a lot of additional, yourselves as, Startup Alliance or Ardian, Keiretsu, we are all, working on a regional basis. So having in mind that fragmentation of the countries and everything, and their size, I think that our best option is to, to present as one region and one ecosystem. So yes, I would say that a lot of things have changed. The ecosystem has matured, and it's going rather better, I'd say, because, for example, the deal flow that we get nowadays is a lot different than when we first started. So now we're in a position to deploy the first tranche of at least $500,000 to $1 million, which means that the startups are ready to assume that kind of capital, because it's not only that you want the money, you need to know how to actually use it and to bring value back to yourself and to the partners you engage with. So I think that back in 2015, there were too little companies that were actually prepared to assume that size of funding. Nowadays, that is not the case. So the mindset and the companies have matured. And of course, there are more opportunities nowadays for that initial funding to, for them to reach some sort of product market fit. So that has also changed. A good example was the Fund of Innovation in Macedonia that until couple of months ago, they were quite aggressively deploying capital. I won't go into details whether that capital was all deployed as should, but nevertheless, a lot of companies got the opportunity to try themselves out and to test their business models. So that was a good initiative. The other countries do not really have that generous government organizations, but I think that is something that is going to change. But luckily, there are other support organizations that emerge that they can provide the initial funding to companies. And yes, in our core portfolio, we have a couple of really successful companies that have managed to raise multiple rounds and millions, and are already present in the global international markets. We also have a couple of companies that failed. I will tell you that predominantly the reason why they failed was that the founders didn't manage to find that product market fit within the runway that they had. So they sort of gave up in a sense. They were not willing to continue and to put a bit more skin in the game themselves. They just gave up. So that is the most often reason that we see for a failure.
And of course, as VCs, you are prepared for this kind of situation. Some will fail, of course, some will progress, and it's very good to hear that also from your side, you see this as developing, although, still regionally, we're at, let's say, early stage of development, with progress, but still there's a lot of work to do in terms of let's say building up our internal capacities. Phil, I'll come back to you, and we mentioned a little bit earlier that Switzerland, different metrics, but it's usually on the top 5 of having a very good startup ecosystem, very mature. I've been, let's say, taking as an example the Swiss ecosystem because the country is not very small. Yes, it's very wealthy. However, or the country is small by, let's say, global standards. It's very wealthy, but so are the other 10 countries in, let's say, in the top 10. How did Switzerland become, a country of 10 million people, become, let's say, one of the leading nations in this global startup race?
Yeah, thank you. I think we're not quite at 10 million people yet, but that only serves to reinforce your point. So a lot of this is the density of value creation, right? And if we look at Switzerland, in Zurich, where I'm based, we have one of the globally leading universities, ETH Zurich. Just across in the French-speaking region, there's EPFL is one of another of the leading universities, and the two of them compete. As you said at the start, I'm originally from the UK. I'm from Oxford, and I studied in Cambridge, so I know what that tension feels like across a country, right? So that level of competition is good, and indeed there are many other world-leading institutions, be they from the technical research side, be they business schools, like we mentioned IMD earlier. And so altogether, I mean, this has created over the last 20 odd years, a real melting pot where particularly university spin-offs, as they spin out they're already very advanced in their thinking about their IP strategy. They're already starting to think about where their first markets are. So our first customers in Switzerland, or can some of the international Swiss network be used to already bring them to the US or to Asia or to South America? So across the markets there. Along with that, so InnoSwiss as a government agency has a wonderful set of funding and coaching alongside, and this is part of a startup ecosystem, right? It is not just funding, but it's the value of the mentoring alongside, and indeed many experienced entrepreneurs that have already grown a venture, they've exited, and now they're giving their time back to mentor those that are either spinning out from university or they've had a corporate career. And then they've decided to launch their startup following that. So there's a lot of knowledge in the ecosystem there, and also a lot of connections that really helps. To give an order of magnitude on the funding, I mean, last year there was $4 billion of VC money going into Swiss startups. That was a record, and indeed we saw a bit of consolidation there. So later stage startups, so lower numbers of deals, but higher deal value. ICT in particular, so the digital side, the number of transactions was down 10%, but the value was up 70-odd%. So there is a symbol of resilience as well, and I think what we can all acknowledge is a challenging time of the last at least 6 months, 12 months. So I mean, one of the interesting things in a bit more of a developed ecosystem is how can we foster collaboration? And that means how can we stack hands on a difficult topic? So in sustainability, for example, we at Digital Switzerland pick biodiversity as a topic, because if we think classic sustainability startups, many of them use an established financial instrument, and that's carbon credits. And we stacked hands across many of our corporate members and said, well, biodiversity is an emerging topic. There's an increase in the ability to measure biodiversity. With SBTI, there's now a framework for that, and then there will be actions arising from it. So this is something that's coming to the front. There are startups there that have proof of concepts. And so our question is how to scale them exactly so they don't fall in that valley of death beyond 1 or 2 proof of concepts, and a business that can actually scale internationally. So that's one of the ways that we foster a collaboration there, by picking an ambitious goal, picking a difficult topic, and then gathering the ecosystem together on that topic.
Thank you, Phil. An interesting number of instruments you mentioned: academia, government involved, startups with, let's say, support and coaching, and also funding along the way, I presume. Of course, you mentioned a number of, such as the 4 billion euro investment mark. Of course, the interesting thing is that the value of, and I presume this will be the case, that the value of money involved is because these small or startups based in Zurich or in Switzerland in general, they see world as their market, rather than just a Swiss market, because it would be very difficult to invest in a startup in Switzerland or focused in Swiss market and then invest 4 billion euros in them. And of course, this is the kind of culture change that, of course, we're trying to build up in our region. And I'm slowly going to move to Ardian now. He's looking, constantly for investment. Ardian, Keiretsu Forum is, let's say, is a well-established organization, but very recently entered, let's say, the Southeastern Europe market. How do you see the teams, and from what you've seen so far, what do they need to execute their vision, which may be very good? Do they need more coaching, more early stage funding, and how you are fitting in this space?
Well, I mean, especially the Western Balkans, I believe, are 10 to 15 years behind Western Europe or the United States. And in this situation, I tend to see the glass half full, meaning that for us, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity initially to build the ecosystem, the pieces of the puzzle, and then see how much we can contribute in that respect. And basically, because of the missing of many of the pieces in the ecosystem, of course, the startups and the entrepreneurs are missing a lot as well. And as investors, we have to step in and basically do some of the work that other people would do in basically looking thoroughly at the company, the industry, the competition, because we've had cases where some entrepreneurs, when we ask them who's your competition, and they say we don't have any competition, and so we have to do some of that homework, and then of course we look at the financial performance and projections and revenue and profitability and cash flow and so on, and basically then we go deeper and look at a full due diligence, look at the operations, management team, financial records, and so on. So basically, for us, Switzerland and UK and the US are great role models, and basically we just have to see what's been done there and try to replicate in our part of the world. So our role is a dual role, I would say, because in one hand we have to invest, and the other hand we have to contribute to build the missing pieces of the puzzle in the ecosystem.
And of course, very interesting topics. And then moving on to Eli now, because a lot of startups from the region, Eli, you know very well, and we know, do not have the track record. So do not have the finances to show to you. Maybe they can project a good opportunity, but even that is very, sometimes very debatable or subjective. So how do you invest in a company that has no track record? Do you look at the team, or are there other means that perhaps South Central Ventures looks and other people that are listening today maybe perhaps can focus on?
Yes, so we predominantly look at three things: product, founders, product, and market potential. Those are the three, alongside competition, but that everything can be then included in these three pillars as most important. In terms of track record, even we would like to see some sort of track record. That does not mean not necessarily mean revenue. They can also be early adopters or similar, just to see that the MVP is being readied. We rarely invest on in an idea stage. We strongly believe that there are other stakeholders in every country in the region that can fill in that funding gap. But even if a company has some sort of revenues already generated, that is very far from having a repeatable sales model in place. That is not on autopilot. So that is still something that they need to discover and to strengthen going forward. But in any case, we focus on the founders predominantly, on their vision and their mindset, because we also, again, going back to the countries that are small and fragmented and the markets are as such and the purchasing power is as it is, they need to be oriented towards international markets. And really, we want to really support companies that have found within their domain expertise niche market where they really are solving some sort of problem. So that is our goal, to identify those founders and those startups. So yes, the founders are crucial. Their mentality, mindset, and vision, how to grow and scale the company. Then the product, from a technical perspective, how much has they did so far, what else is on the product map, how that would improve the product and add maybe additional revenue avenues to the sales. And then, of course, last but not least, is the market potential. We definitely would like to see big enough market potential to be able to exit in some years from the initial closing, because the VC fund, how it operates, we invest 5 years, we have a tenure of 10 years, we invest the first 5 years, then in the next 5 years we need to exit from the company. So that is something that the founder needs to understand, that there is going to be a certain point in time where we would be insisting almost on exiting either ourselves or together with them. So definitely, I mean, if a founder wants to make that as a lifestyle business for him, and it's most probably not going to work out because they need to have that mindset that an exit needs to happen and somebody bigger than us needs to take maybe over or integrate them in their wider structure. But in any case, regardless of the traction or not, founders, product, and market potential are the three things that we concentrate on.
And of course, for the founders that are listening, they need to investigate this, especially the market potential, very well in order to be able to present this as a serious case, because we see also very often wild figures for market potential generally in the world. Phil, you mentioned earlier a number of actors that needs to come together to make an ecosystem as valuable as the Swiss ecosystem. Of course, we come from the region and from various reasons, historical mostly. We don't do collaboration very well. I mean, we've got a lot better in the last, let's say, 10 years. We're getting better every year. There's lots more mobility, but still we're far away, in my opinion, from where we can be. The Swiss also speak different languages within their country. How do you, in your opinion, what are the main mechanisms that you could engage different actors under, let's say, under one umbrella and make them solve real problems and bring value to this ecosystem?
Yeah, that's an interesting point on the languages, and indeed, this is okay that I'm British, because many default to English, even if it's not an official language. So I think, as I said before, I mean, stacking hands on a difficult challenge is one of these ways, and I mean, to mirror that in another space, so in the digital health space, for example. There's a lot that is made about the electronic health record or electronic patient dossier. And that's a very interesting space, because clearly in terms of digital transformation, there's huge potential there in terms of structured business models and the classic market sizing that is done based on reimbursement mechanisms around the world is much harder to estimate that. And so again, stacking hands on that and seeing, well, based on that as a challenge, so advancing the electronic health record, what else is needed in the ecosystem, in the backbone? So that's why there's a focus on cybersecurity, okay, because digital trust is obviously a key enabler of this. That's why there's a focus on the electronic ID as well, because of course that's a key part of it. And the Swiss are famed for voting as well in referenda, and therefore one of the areas of digital transformation is taking that voting process from even in some places where it's done in the town square as a manual show of hands, but most often as a postal vote, and taking that into a digital space. So in order for this to happen, I think it was recognized that as government entities alone, they don't have the skill set and the competences in order to do this. So they need innovation from somewhere. As many established corporates show, they may not have the innovation mindset. So mindset is a big part of this, right? And that's clearly where startups are able to see opportunities. They're able to navigate challenging environments as well. I mean, that's a standard startup that's both monitoring their progress, but also looking for risks at the same time. And bring all of that together in what we can say is a relatively stable environment where indeed there is the ability to make mistakes, to learn from them, to readjust, because of course most of what happens in startups is testing a hypothesis or testing a set of hypotheses, and therefore from the startup perspective, the question is, how can you show that you're de-risking an investment because you're actively testing these hypotheses, and you can show customer traction in terms of interviews and corresponding letters of intent as a result of that, or you can show that even though your business plan says we're going to conquer the US market, where you've actually gone there and you've tested it and you've got some key opinion leaders already engaging with the product. So I think with that mindset, there's a lot of this kind of room to maneuver within the market, so space to find allies, to test these hypotheses, and then of course to play it back in an open forum in a way, and this is part of what we do at Digital Switzerland, to shine a light on areas of innovation where we can say either it's working or it's on a good track and there's positive momentum there, because if we can be the lighthouse that shines the light on some of those areas, then it can be an area of inspiration for others in the ecosystem, maybe in different sectors or at different stages.
Very interesting, thank you. Ardian, we'll come back. When you invest in early stage, very risky propositions, and I'm pretty sure you see quite a few of them every day, but of course, being from the region, it's slightly easier for you to understand what the perhaps what the issues of these founders are, and of course, the ecosystem that's probably not there to help them entirely along their growth path. How do you mitigate the risks? Because of course, investing is risky, specifically in this type of teams that we see in our region. How do you do it? And do you have a method? Does Keiretsu Forum have it, or does Ardian provide more input?
Well, I mean, first of all, being an entrepreneur myself, being a business myself, you get to develop the thinking about evaluating opportunities and evaluating the risks. So that definitely helps. But in investing, the whole idea of Keiretsu is to have more investors who have more expertise, like 2 people are smarter than 1, 3 people are smarter than 2, and so on. So the idea is that we evaluate the startups together, the investment opportunities, and also the idea of being present in 9 countries. We might not know the local affairs, or we might not know what kind of family or background a person is. So with our network, we can ask around more precisely, and this way, get a clearer picture about the entrepreneur. Then when it comes to the product or the service, the company, more or less it's typical all around the world. We see what the strengths are. Then we look at what the market opportunity is. Then, I mean, when we like the idea, we like the entrepreneur, then we go into detail and basically scan the company completely. We look at the team, how competent they are to execute the vision. We look at what their operations look like, and basically look at every detail. And then we have a joke, whether it's investing or starting a business yourself. If it was not risky, it would have been called profit. Are you doing profit? So investing is always risky, and in investing, you also tend to invest basically as much as you can lose, so you don't go all in one company and invest your last euro. This way, and then we also look at what we can do to help the company, to help the team, to help the entrepreneur to grow the company, so that our chances of success increase. That's why we're so active in trying to partner with as many players in our region, but also in the wider region and also globally. We attend all kinds of events, all kinds of conferences, and we try to enrich our network as well, so that when it's time to go to the later stages, we help pave the way, and this way the startups can grow and not have any struggles along the growth. So yeah, I mean, I believe it's pretty typical. It's a little bit more difficult, but we will get there. We're in a very good path, and like Eli said, Macedonia had the government basically have a fund and have a focus. Kosovo, we used to have the Ministry of Entrepreneurship and Innovation with a 10 million euro budget, basically for startups. Like in Macedonia, it's a different story how the money was distributed and how effective it was. But it's important that our governments are seeing the value. In Albania as well, there is the fund, and it's increasing. You know, the awareness is increasing. That's the most important. The rest, I believe, we as investors will fill as a gap, and hopefully inspire even more entrepreneurs to roll their sleeves and get to work with their ideas.
And of course, you're doing a lot of work in training potential business angels, because we need more of them.
Definitely.
And that's why Keiretsu Forum is very important also for this in this aspect. Eli, I'll come back to you. Similar question, but what else? Or let's look at it from this way: you have a certain size ticket that you want to deploy. Of course, that is in your investment thesis. Is it difficult to find, let's say, a good deal flow of companies on the level that you require, or is this relatively now a much easier proposition?
Well, it's not easy, definitely, but I wouldn't say that it's difficult. I mean, there are some solid entrepreneurs and solid business ideas. They might still not be at the level or the stage of development that we want to see, or when we want to engage with them, because as I said, deploying larger tickets, really the founder and the company needs to be ready to assume that. So maybe they're not there yet, but still there are a number of good potential opportunities here in the region. And yes, being a regional investor makes things a bit easier from that perspective, because we are active in 8 countries, not just in one. So in one country per country, you might argue that there are not enough opportunities, but having in mind the entire region, I'd say that there are some good potential opportunities.
Okay, and what is your minimum size ticket? If someone, and I'm sure you've been asked this question many times, but I'll ask it again.
Yes, so our sweet spot is between 500,000 and 1 million for the first tranche, and then we can go up to 5 million throughout the life cycle of the company. which is a bit different from the previous fund where we had a pocket for pre-seed investments when we started with 100K. It's not that nowadays we cannot start with that. It's just that we see good enough pipeline for these larger tickets. So yeah, in this year, we're going to stay with that mindset and with that investment thesis. Then, we'll see if we need to shift also our approach.
Good. I'm pretty sure a €500,000 size ticket size buys you a lot more of a startup in the region than what $500,000 would buy in Switzerland. Sure.
Yeah, but it's interesting because when we spoke about what changed in these years, is that it's also the appetite of the founders changed. So nowadays I don't receive a pitch deck that with an ask less than 1 million. I don't know about you, Ardian, but the first pitch deck that I usually receive, it's always around 1 million. How much are you raising? But at least 1 million. Okay, let me see why do you need the funds? But guys, you need like 100K to reach this. And that, you don't need 1 million, because I think that also startups rarely understand that the challenges start when you raise the first round. Because, previously that was your own baby, it could have been a lifestyle business. It could have been, I don't know, something that you want to play around. But then, the real challenges starts when you partner with somebody and when you want to position yourself on the venture track. Because that is a totally different story that you would, need to commit to be able to pursue it. So, yeah.
So that part that you mentioned, Eli, about, having these valuations, it's part of the education, and it's part of where we help them to put their feet on the ground.
Yeah, but this is not the valuation. The valuation is something else. So when they want, this is about the ask, the funding ask, the round size. That's another topic. Yeah. The valuation, of course, which it's definitely challenging to come to a valuation when a company does not have a track record or some business results. But yeah, let's not go down there.
Of course, we mentioned education, and I come back to culture. It's a lot, it's part of development, I think, of an ecosystem that people get more accustomed to, or, they kind of bridge the gap in know-how and knowledge of what should a startup evaluated like. And to be honest with you, as an incubator, we have a whole curricula developed on how to evaluate your startup. There's many ways and variables we show, but of course, as you said, this is changing, because 3-4 years ago, we used to get either very low valuations or very high. Nothing matched what the development stage of the startup were. So again, it's a case of development, I think, and we will slowly get there. Phil, Digital Switzerland is an ecosystem builder. It's it helps develop many, let's say, many instruments that you mentioned. How do you and developing an ecosystem? We're all very well aware that doesn't happen in 2 years. Neither it does in 3 or 5. Maybe you've seen from the UK that this started many years ago, maybe 20-25 years ago, in developing the let's say, innovative startup ecosystem. Switzerland has done it faster than everyone else, because I remember 10 years ago it wasn't at this level. How do you match, as an ecosystem builder, this need for quick scaling with a much more valuable, productive, long-term strategy? Or I should say sustainable strategy.
Well, yeah, sustainability is an interesting area, and I think we see more and more innovation there. But there's really an element of persistence in this, right? So starting out as Digital Switzerland did in 2015, 2016, one of the initial steps was to create more forums for corporates to meet startups. and of course, investors were invited alongside, because that's part of the puzzle, and the CVCs came as well. But so that initial step was giving them the forum to meet and understand actually what could be the value from each side. So the corporates had started to develop offerings for the startups, either using parts of their products or benefiting from parts of their networks, their platforms, etc. And then the startups needed a forum to pitch themselves and feel it kind of accepted, and have that opportunity, and also dive into their vertical as well. So get enough of them together, like I said, on sustainability, so enough sustainability startups together, that the question is a bit more, which sustainability startup do I work with, or what's the value proposition that most matches my needs right now? Rather than kind of flip-flopping between, oh, is it something in sustainability, or is it something in transport and mobility, or something else? And so we've seen that kind of focus through the years of the VCs having their priority areas, the CVCs being much more specific about where they're looking for strategic partnerships as well, and the corporates refining what their offers are for the start of a collaboration, or more clearly articulating their needs, where perhaps maybe they're lacking a bit of internal innovation, or maybe they see a gap where indeed a startup has already got a network that they can leverage there. So, I mean, today, the way we're doing that is to look for areas where we still see gaps in the ecosystem. So one of those gaps is clearly female founders. I'm sure I'm not the only one on the call to experience that. But female founders doesn't just mean female CEOs, it means females across the entire founding team, the C-level. And so that, I mean, we have several initiatives. One is our next gen format that we run with school children aged 10 to 15, already introducing the different tech tools to them, sensitizing them to things like generative AI, so that they're already thinking in these ways about it. And so maybe that entrepreneurial route, that's a bit of the long-term play then. It seems more appealing for them. And then another of our flagship initiatives is Her Hack, so the largest female hackathon that this year we're able to take internationally as well. So it will start in Singapore as our next location for Her Hack. So again, bringing clearly females together that want to participate in a hackathon, but not necessarily with a technical background. They may be career changers that have already gone some way through their career and said, oh, maybe the tech switch is for me right now. So these slightly longer term plays are about making that safe space for them to experiment and to see what are the opportunities and where could they best fit and take advantage of the other parts of the ecosystem that are already thriving.
Excellent. Phil, thank you. I mean, it always amazes me how the Swiss, such a small country, have their hackathon in Singapore. Actually, it was 4 years ago, roughly about that. I won't mention the name of the VC, but there was a Swiss VC who came to Tirana. He came to one of our sessions with startups, and he gave one very simple example, which kind of, is one of the light bulb moments for us, where he said, we're taking a number of Swiss startups and we're planting them in Vietnam, which means that, this was a service package that they offered to a startup from Switzerland, and immediately taking their tech, their team all the way there, and of course, taking the risks, sharing the risks of developing these companies in Southeast Asia. Ever since, we've been pushing all startups, perhaps not to follow that example, because maybe it's a little bit too much stretch for us, but to look at different markets from the set, because essentially we're just too small to make as a market or as a purchasing power to make any difference. Guys, just being aware of the time, I will come back with 1 minute final questions. I'll start with Eli. Eli, you work in the region. what would you change?
In terms of the ecosystem, the general political situation, or?
No, let's leave politics out of it.
No, I'm just kidding. In the ecosystem, I think that I would like to see more involvement of the corporations as early adopters of the solutions of the startup companies, or at least being mindful that there are some people that can bring innovation into their corporations, and to look that from within, from our countries, not from abroad. So bigger involvement of the corporations. Then also I think that the academia and the universities can be much more present and active in nurturing that entrepreneurship mentality and supporting. I'm not sure that we have that many R&D centers in our universities, which is something that should be changed going forward. And then, of course, when you talk about big corporations, there are big CEOs and people that can act as angel investors, or just, try to be more involved with companies, share knowledge, if not, in funding as well, but predominantly also knowledge on how to scale companies and tailor the products to the specific market needs. So yeah, that would be a couple of things. And then really some, more initiatives and acceleration programs and angel investments to bridge the gap in the initial funding, because, the purchasing power here is as it is. So, the general friends, fools, and family does not really apply for our startups in the region. So they need to, ask elsewhere from the very beginning for some funding. So yeah, I think that we need that more opportunities for that initial funding. And then with the pandemics, actually the competition also increased on our end. So, currently a lot of VC firms are scouting the region and are looking for startups across our region. So I think that, once you reach that stage of development when you're on a venture track, then financing should not be a problem, regardless of where your headquarters.
Thank you. By the way, we've changed the name of Friends, Fools, and Family to Flaming Fans. Ardian, same question. What would you like to see different?
Well, knowing that angel investing is the riskiest of all investments, I think that what the government can do is take the examples of countries like Turkey and Italy and create incentives for investors and make it a little bit less risky, because our role is so important. Then I would say the rest of the legal infrastructure can be improved. Also, there needs to be alignment within Southeast Europe, or at least the Western Balkans. Make it easier for companies to incorporate, make it easier to organize the investments, the syndicating, and so on. Then invest in education and training. The more investment into vocational training and programs that address the labor market, the better for us. The more entrepreneurs, the more startups will be born, and the more opportunities for us to invest in. Then work on linking even more the universities and the industry, and promote basically the commercialization of the new technologies. Help basically further develop the ecosystem, invest more in incubators and accelerators, programs like yours. And also what is finally happening is invest in infrastructure such as roads and telecommunication and energy, because that also has a direct impact in starting businesses and making it easier to work. And just yesterday, there was this investment from Macedonia about the 8th corridor, which I think will help immensely for the entrepreneurs, but also for us as investors. It's very simple for us. I mean, we just have to look what other countries have done and just replicate. We don't have to invent something new, you know. So if there is the will, and we as investors, but also the whole ecosystem should encourage the governments to build the will. And then if there is a will, we can much more quickly catch up with our friends in Switzerland, with Germany, with the UK, with the United States. And hopefully at some point we can basically produce as many startups from this part of the world as possible, and not only provide investment opportunities for the investors, but also provide solutions that will improve people's lives, will improve doing business, and contribute to making the world a better place as well.
Phil, I will close with you, but very little to change in Swiss ecosystem. You're already there. So give us, you've heard a little bit about our region, very early stage of development. What would you suggest? Should we focus on particular technologies, industries, or should we continue the growth of ecosystem development to more horizontal way?
Yeah, you read my mind. I'm glad you said, should you focus? Because my advice is yes. And I think for a very simple reason, that if you focus on an area, be it a specific vertical or a specific customer problem, let's say, and then you look at what's the enabling technology, what's the infrastructure around it that's needed in order to develop the startups there, how does this trace back to R&D departments in universities, et cetera, then very quickly the ecosystem map becomes clear based on just one very focused question, because then it's clear what's needed. And the great thing is, if that's successful, then you can hold it up and you can say, well, this is something to really celebrate. And okay, it doesn't cover everything yet, but it's something to be very joyful about. And I think that's part of the hard work of startups. Ardian, as you said, it's not just profit, there's a risk there. And that's what we live day to day in a startup. So to have those moments of celebration where you can reflect on the progress that's being made, because I'm sure progress is being made. And I think you set a very high benchmark looking at Switzerland. And I tell you, Switzerland, we look at other countries as well for inspiration. So you're not alone in this. So yeah, really, I would say focus, see what is needed, and build the ecosystem around that so that you can celebrate progress in one area.
Guys, it's been an hour and 15 or so minutes of very interesting thoughts. I really enjoyed it. We can never have enough of this, but we have to end it at some point. Eli, thank you. Ardian, thank you. Phil, thank you. I will let you get on with your evenings, and looking forward to seeing you again or speaking to you again.
Thank you so much. Always a pleasure, Ardian.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.
Bye. Have a good evening.